Today we're taking a look at multiple articles all talking about JT Miller. It looks likely that inevitably a trade is very likely to happen, and when it does, he's most likely going to a Metropolitan Division team. They are the teams that are in the mix. So we're going to take a look at the Islanders, Canes, and Devils, who are all interested in acquiring the former 99-point player. Plus, we also have news out of Arizona, an update on Joe Thornton, and some more signings, and big news out of Vegas regarding Mark Stone. All that and more coming up next. Welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a fair bit of NHL news to take a look at and some trade talk around Canucks superstar JT Miller, which we'll get to in just a few moments. First up, we do have an update on Jumbo Joe Thornton. No word yet exactly what his confirmed plans are for the upcoming year, and maybe he's still in the process of finalizing things, but we can no doubt confirm that he will not be returning to the Florida Panthers, where he played last season. His wife had an Instagram post kind of saying their goodbyes to Florida, which was not a huge shocker that they wouldn't have him back at this point. He was given a very, very small role, was not a regular in the lineup when he did play, wasn't contributing at a high level, so not a big shock that they've decided to move on, and we don't know that he's going to play in the NHL this year. He very well could go to training camp with a team on a PTO. That's possible, but there are some other rumors circulating that he might be heading over to Switzerland. Now, he's made it known before that he might consider playing a season in the Swiss League before he wraps it up and calls it a career. Of course, he played over there during an NHL lockout, and that's where he met his wife. So, of course, he has his in-laws and family over there on her side. So certainly, an intriguing aspect of them possibly going over there for at least a little while. So that's a possibility. And there's also rumors that he might even not play, but maybe work in some sort of a management role over there in Switzerland as well in the hockey league. So hard to say exactly what we know about Jumbo. All we can say for sure is that he's not returning to Florida, and we don't know his future plans, but there are rumors about him going to Switzerland, and we'll see hopefully here in the next few weeks what his future plans are. Now, the Arizona Coyotes have also made an organizational change. They've named former NHL player Lee Stempniak, who was a well-traveled player who, between free agency and trade, moved around a fair bit of times, but was certainly a decent player and had himself a decent career. Once he got out of playing, he was into player development, and he's now been named the director of player development for the Coyotes. So that's a nice a promotion for him, a good step forward for his off-ice career here in hockey management. So that's a good addition there to the Coyotes staff. Like I said, Stempniak was always a well-respected player, and he's well-traveled, certainly got around, and has a wealth of experience he can share with today's NHL youngsters. Now, a couple signings as well. The San Jose Sharks have finally come to terms with restricted free agent forward Jonah Gatchevich, who they acquired last year from Vancouver. He comes to terms on a one-year contract, but it's a two-way deal. It's a $750,000 salary at the NHL and $120,000 salary at the AHL. A little bit surprising. I thought they might give him a one-way deal this year, given the fact that he kind of stuck in the NHL all last year, didn't play any games in the minors. Although he didn't really have a phenomenal season. Gatchevich played 43 games, only put up 3 points, but he's certainly going to be, I think, for him to make a little bit more longer-lasting NHL career, he's going to have to play very physical, possibly drop the gloves down again, and be probably a fourth-line player who can give you that, that physicality and kind of protect your teammates type of guy. And I don't know exactly what they see of him, but certainly he'll sign on for one more season and see where it goes. But Gatchevich was a fairly good, promising prospect. Was a lot more offensive in the junior levels, but it's not always something that translates to the NHL level. But time will tell. He's still young. He's still has some time to see if he can bring out some more of those qualities. The Flyers have also made another signing as well. They've signed Hayden Hodgson, who's a 26-year-old forward, signs a 2-year extension. He did play in Philly last year, played a handful of games at the NHL, gets $800,000 salary. It's a 2-way deal in year 1 and a 1-way deal in year 2. So last year he split between the AHL and NHL, had a real solid run in the American Hockey League for the Phantoms, got into a handful of games with the Flyers, and obviously they want to keep him around and see if he can continue to build off that. Now, some other news today that it's pretty substantial news in my opinion, and I'm trying to confirm this with more sources more information, but it just is a casual tidbit in an NHL.com article I came across. I seen an article on NHL.com written by Jackie Spiegel on Jack Eichel in Vegas, and talking about how Eichel basically is acknowledging the fact that fans are expecting more out of him and might have been a little bit disappointed with his play last year and all that. And he said basically that a lot of it's justified. He was coming off a major surgery, major injury, a long layoff, etc. He took a while to find his groove, and he's finally had an opportunity to properly train in the offseason, which is something he hasn't had in a while. And he expects to be able to be a lot healthier and contribute more and more productive this year, and he's really looking forward to getting going with the season. So the bulk of the article was kind of talking about Jack and him looking forward to being healthy, and kind of talking about the fans' expectations and fan reaction to him last year going into this year and all that. But then there's just this little tidbit talking about the fact that Mark Stone is not going to be at training camp, and we know that Mark Stone has been battling a back injury, which kept him out a fair bit last season. It was reported that he did have some sort of procedure or operation on his back, I believe back in May, I want to say it was. And we don't really know for sure, like the timelines. They haven't really given a lot of details on that. But given the long layoff, I think a lot of people were hopeful and optimistic that given when he had his surgery, the fact that Vegas didn't have they didn't make the playoffs, so his offseason started a little bit sooner, because he did try to come back at the end of the year and help get them into the playoffs, but it didn't really work out, of course, and he probably wasn't anywhere near 100%. You could tell watching him play that he was probably 60-70% at best. Like, Stone was not himself there for quite a while. But if he misses training camp, that means he's not going to be ready to start the season. That's going to be a big blow for this team. I mean, we already know that Vegas is going to be in a Pacific Division, which in my opinion is fairly open. I think the two teams that we can probably, and we'll get into this more in season previews here, which I intend to start in the next few days, probably in the early part of September. I think Calgary, Edmonton look pretty good. I mean, Edmonton is, quite similar to last year. They made some changes, but all their changes appear to be mostly positive. So I can see the Oilers being in the top couple teams in that division. Calgary, even though they've had significant change, should still be a very good team. I mean, some people think they're going to be better. Some people think they're going to be about the same. I don't really think that we can say that they're going to be worse. I mean, to be honest, they brought in some pretty good talent. I mean, Gaudreau goes out, Huberdeau comes in. That's a very comparable trade-off, in my opinion. They get Nazem Kadri instead of Matthew Tkachuk now. Based on last year, it's not much of a drop-off. Kadri is older. Will give you a lot of the same physicality, the edge, and the rough stuff, and all the other things that he brings to the game, similar to Tkachuk. But at the same time, historically speaking, Matthew Tkachuk is the better offensive player. So, but if he's going to be able to play top six and get with some good line mates, can Kadri continue what he did in Colorado last year? It's possible that he might have a bit of an explosion in his offensive numbers later in his career. We'll see. But either way, then you throw Uyghur on the back end. Their blue line's incredibly deep. They have a great goaltender. I don't think there's any reason to think Calgary can't be in the top couple teams in that division too. And then you got like the LA Kings, who had a big surge last year, got into the playoffs. At this point, I think we can probably bank on them likely building on that. And then you got Vegas and Vancouver, probably the only other teams that I think that'll be hanging around and be in the mix here. And Vancouver certainly has its questions. We're going to get into Miller here in just a moment or two. So obviously they've got their stuff going on too. But, Vegas, they don't have a goaltending with experience at all. Logan Thompson, I mean, they're relying on him. And you know what? Maybe he'll be ready and prove a lot of people wrong, and he'll be a real solid addition to that team. He was good in limited action last year, but he's never had to be the guy, like at the NHL level. He's got, short amount of experience here. And if you take away Mark Stone from that offense, you already take away Max Pacioretty, who they gave away for nothing. That whole dream of having Stone, Pacioretty, Eichel together, gone. And all of a sudden, those two wingers that were likely pegged to play with Jack Eichel, not there anymore. At least, Stone will hopefully be back at some point, but it's a big, big problem in Vegas. And I think Mark Stone missing training camp would be a huge blow to this team trying to get back in the playoff hunt and trying to regain that playoff form and make another run here. So we'll see. Obviously, this has not been confirmed by the Vegas Golden Knights. I haven't seen this information anywhere else, but I wouldn't think that an NHL.com article would be reckless enough to put information that's not been verified. So we'll have to see. But that could be huge news out of Vegas for sure if Stone indeed does miss training camp. Now on to Miller. We're going to talk about JT Miller's some articles here between Vancouver Hockey Now, Islanders Hockey Now, and of course there's also been a lot of chatter between Rick Dollywall and Thomas Drance between The Athletic as well on Miller's future. Essentially when it comes to the extension talks, it's not much in the way. They're still saying there's nowhere near deals. The terms that each party is kind of going for is far apart. And the agents already confirmed that they're extremely likely to say no more negotiating once the season starts. So there's not a lot of time left. So many feel a Miller deal is pretty much inevitable. And some feel it's quite risky for Vancouver to go into the season without taking care of this first. Either trade him or extend him and get it done before the season starts. They also have Captain Bo Horvat in a similar scenario, although many feel he's much more likely to get that extension completed. They can't really afford to lose either of these guys to free agency next year. And in case of Miller, if they're going to cut off negotiations, what are the odds of coming to a deal during the season? It's pretty slim, right? The team would have to basically reach out and say, yeah, you remember those demands you made? Here, we're going to meet them all. Please sign. And there's no guarantee that they will even do that. Players sometimes don't want to negotiate and take their focus away from the actual game itself and being productive. Now, a couple of names have been brought up here for teams that could be traded with would be the Devils, Islanders, and Hurricanes. Now, according to the first article here in Vancouver Hockey Now, he references the fact that the Islanders and the Canucks had extensive talks at the draft, but he references the Canes and the Devils as being two other trading partners. Now, we suggest, which is some of this we've heard before, but some of it's a little different here, but New Jersey, he recommends that they kind of build a package around Damon Severson, who the Canucks could use on the right side of their blue line. Could be a good piece. Now, of course, that's not all, but Damon Severson could be the main roster player coming back that could help them now. You're probably throwing in a prospect and a draft pick, probably a first rounder at that, to kind of get the deal complete. So that's probably what things are looking at. When he references the Carolina Hurricanes, you're looking at Marty Necas probably being one of the centerpieces, along with one of their defensemen, like an Ethan Bear or Brett Pesce. Carolina would likely offer up Bear over Pesce, would be my guess. That wouldn't take much of a really thought process. It would be Bear for sure. It's about Necas, Bear, and a first. I mean, that's not a bad deal. You get a fairly young, good right shot defenseman who's underrated, in my opinion. I really like Ethan Bear. You get Marty Necas, who's really looking to break out as a center or winger, and a first rounder. That's a pretty good haul. Carolina could get themselves a player here. I mean, obviously they lost Vincent Trocheck in the top six, and yes, they've brought in Paul Stastny, but will he give them the offense that they need? They get Max Pacioretty picked up in the offseason, but he's out a long time. You throw in Miller in the mix, if they could pull that trade off, they'd be way better off in the playoffs. If they could get, you throw in Pacioretty healthy at playoff time, and you get Stastny in there, Miller plus what they already had, that would be a good boost. We know Carolina struggled at times to score in the playoffs, and that's certainly the area they're going to focus on. They wanted to add at least one, big finisher, so to speak. And the Islanders are in the same boat, except, of course, unfortunately, they missed the playoffs, and I know right now it looks like Lou's planning to run it back with largely the same group. And, of course, Stefan Rosner on Islanders Hockey Now, again referencing the fact of a Miller deal, essentially saying that, I know at one point it was Noah Dobson was the talk of what the Islanders would have to give up, and that's not happening. I know we've talked about that once before. There's just no way that if Vancouver insists on Dobson in the deal, Lou will 100% hang up the phone. That's not happening. But they talked about the fact maybe they would include Scott Mayfield, who's on a very team-friendly deal, but not much term left. He could go to Vancouver to help their right side of their blue line. Of course, you're looking at probably a first-rounder being included. And he recommends maybe a player like Zachary Bolduc as being like a sweetener, so to speak, where Mayfield is not under contract for a long time and may not be the long-term answer in Vancouver. So Mayfield, Bolduc, and then probably a first rounder, and then you're looking at another roster player would have to be included to make the money work. But if I'm the Islanders at that point, you're going to have to insist on it being Josh Bailey. I'm not going to put Beauvillier in that deal too. If you're giving up Mayfield, Bolduc, a first rounder, and Beauvillier, that's a little bit much in my opinion for Miller. As much as I like Miller, again, you have your concerns over the term you're going to have to sign him to and the age and all that. There's lots of things to like, but there's some certainly things to be concerned of too, right? And I'm not giving up that much for Miller and then signing him to like a 7-8 year deal. At $9 million or something. I don't know sure what he wants, but if something that substantial, no. Like you'd be looking at maybe if you take Bailey and maybe they take Bolduc instead of Mayfield and a first or something. I don't know. It'd have to be a little bit less than that. That's for sure. But either way, we've got some significant offers here on the table for these metropolitan teams that would work and make sense for both sides in a Miller trade. Like I said, and with the opinion that a lot of people think that they don't want to go into the season and have a distraction, and if they're going to cut off negotiations, it'd probably be best for Vancouver to take care of this before the season starts. These are some real serious options that they could consider, and I know some of them definitely have had conversations before. Could they do it again? Can they finally get a deal done? Let me know your thoughts on the JT Miller trade. Give me some mock trades down in the comments. Let me know your thoughts on the trade scenarios discussed here in the video, and then we'll talk about it further in the comments. And of course, if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news, rumors, and analysis on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.